Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Trinks Glue. We are doing a VOD tonight for community stalwart numbersJS. He did a request earlier this week, and we thought we'd do him a solid. And he means so much to me that I invited the one and only Golden Shocker to come along and join me. So, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce Golden Shocker.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Hope everyone's having a good time and looking forward to doing the review here.
So this is an Ultros League seed. Obviously, the current season's flags. Eddie asked us to take a look at, and it's in the seed sharing right now. Maybe a lot of you who are tuning in have run it, but I ran it myself, and it was like a really interesting start. So I think it was a Shadow, Edgar, and a Moggs start, I want to say. So a lot of places you can go to get going and whatnot. So we have a little inside information, or at least I do, and maybe some of you do at home. But yeah. So without further ado, Golden Shark, let me ask you this: this season, what has been your approach to some of the seed starts and what you've been doing differently, maybe you have in the past?
Uh, I'd say the biggest thing for me right now is to make sure that I'm finding offense as quickly as possible. So, in a seed start where maybe it's like Edgar, Shadow, I'd be looking for something that Edgar can equip, an Illumina, Ragnarok,
Mm-hmm.
trying to get him kind of framed up. You have a few free checks to go chase, so I'd be looking at stuff like that definitely off the beginning of this, and then trying to build onto that with whatever I find while I'm looting.
All right, let me ask you a follow up question. Um, what is like when you do your weekly seeds or when you do your more competitive seeds? Do you do anything special? Do you do anything to get your mind in a good space? Do you exercise? Do you consume caffeine? Is there anything different that you would do than when you maybe play casually on a Saturday morning?
Uh, I would say that the biggest thing for me is just make sure that I'm you know, kind of eliminate some of the distractions. Like if I'm just playing casually, I'm listening to music or whatever. Whereas when I'm trying to lock in a little bit, kind of taking some of that out of the equation and
Mm-hmm.
just trying to think about like what's my next move. So like while I'm playing, I'm not necessarily just thinking about like where I stand at that point in time. I'm starting to like plot out like two or three steps ahead
Mm-hmm.
because basically it's reducing the number of variables you have to think about at any
Yeah.
point in time. So that's my big like, as I get into a seed, what I'm thinking about, like
Mm-hmm.
how do I make this as straightforward as possible?
Yeah, you'll see a lot of people, do put their chat on emote only. A lot of people even, just record theirs locally and upload it to their spoiler room when they're done. I personally like to exercise. So like, I do my runs, sometimes Saturday afternoon, Saturday morning ish is when I go to the grocery store and then I go to the local YMCA. So that way, my body is, in a better place. It's loose, it's nimble, it's not tight, and it's hard to sit down as you get older for 90 minutes straight, or maybe a little less if you have a good seat. You know what I mean? But here's the thing too. I want to point out with numbers. Have you ever heard the saying, "You look good, you feel good, and you feel good, you play good"?
Play good, they pay good.
Yeah, exactly. And let me show you where I'm going with that. Uh, Look at my dog's hat up here in the corner. That is a good looking hat. And I've told his numbers numerous times. He plays infinitely better when he has that hat on. So I expect nothing less from him today. It's going to be a strong performance because if you look good, you play good, right? So
There you go.
with that out of the way, I just need to get that out of the way. I thought that's an important, thing to mention there. All right,
Yeah,
so
that's like the number one thing
yeah,
going
because
in.
if you feel bad, you'll play bad, right? So all right, so with that out of the way, let's get further ado, hit play, and see what happens. Oh, I was mistaken. It was a Strago Ego Shadow start. So we got dance, we got throw, we got health. That's a pretty lucrative, pretty juicy start. What would be your approach here,
Yeah.
Golden Shocker, going forward?
The other thing to really think about with a throw start and an Edgar start is getting money early. So I'd be looking for some loot to basically take advantage of the throw. Like you're looking for throwable ammunition to throw, and then half price shops in South Figaro, World of
Mm-hmm.
Ruin. So I'm looking for what makes that up, basically.
Mm-hmm. And numbers did ask that we go a little harsher on him. I don't know if we're going to use the words harsh, but maybe a little more analytical, a little more critical of some of the decisions. So one of the things I want to point out here, let's pretend this is your Ultros League week 5 or week 6 or whatever it is seed, and we're running against the people our division mates. With this Edgar start, it's important to remember that whatever you find in South Figaro, 7, 8, or if you're in a higher, the highest bracket, 12 of the people are going to find all the same things, right? So don't, just think, okay, I got, good stuff, I can maybe coast. Keep in mind that as we go through some of the approaches I'm going to personally mention, and that is under the assumption that everybody you were trying to beat is going to be working with the same equipment you are, because everybody goes to South Figaro, Water Run South Figaro with an Edgar start. You'd have to, just not know how the discount mechanic works to not do it, right?
Yeah, I mean that's the big thing. Like you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't, set yourself up to succeed there. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you really want to find all that and make sure that you're taking advantage of the discount shops, especially if there's, something like rods or shields, like some breakables. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
finding offering, a lot of people will just jet straight over to like Figaro Castle.
Mm-hmm.
So, you have some intel on water edges offering.
Mm-hmm.
That could be pretty important. So it's good to do these shop checks early.
Now let me ask you this with an Edgar start. The discount, and the Figaro Throne are the most pertinent things. With an Edgar start, what order are you doing those things? And I'll put 3 categories out there. We'll put Figaro Throne, visiting Walter Ruin South Figaro, and then looting elsewhere. In what order would you prioritize those things with this start?
A little bit of a mix in my opinion. Like I'd probably swing by Nourish World of Balance first or Returners, depending on how much money, like depending on what sellables I get. Because I want to have at least a little bit of money on hand. I also want to take advantage of like if there's warp stones or something that's kind of rare to find in a shop,
Mm-hmm.
earrings, that kind of thing. You might want to buy a couple of those up front. But yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think like loot a little bit, then you start shopping, just so you have money to actually spend.
Yeah.
Last thing you want to do is find something you can't afford it.
Yeah, I personally will end whatever looting path I'm going to take based on whatever else we have. Like with Shadow, obviously you're going over to Gal Manor, but the reason being, it's like you put yourself in an awkward position if you go there first and you see there's discount ice rods, and all you've looted is the 4 chest in the Figaro Castle. Well, then you don't have any money to capitalize on those ice rods. So then you either go do the basement or go to Narish or whatever. And then there's, oh my goodness, that's an Illumina. But
Yeah.
anywho, you don't have the money to capitalize on that, so you just gotta backtrack over there, right? So I always try to end up there last so I can capitalize. I have whatever I'm gonna have to spend on whatever it may be there that I'm gonna buy.
Yeah, I think that's actually really important, especially with a kind of shop heavy start.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like a throw start and a Edgar start kind of adds together to you're going to buy a lot early,
Mm-hmm.
and then you want to basically use that as your power to move forward.
All right, so he's got the Thunder Shield. He's got an Esper. We found an Illumina in the chest in the castle. Finding all that off the start, what would you prioritize next? We see numbers here going to World of Balance South Figaro and doing a more traditional looting path. With that accelerated offense, would you maybe hyper speed your way on over to World of Run South Figaro, or are you okay with this?
I think you would go straight to World of Runes South Figaro with this because basically, like you're buying full price earrings, you already know like you have a starting offense. With between throw, you know where water edges are. You'll probably find another set of schemes in South Figaro.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say you want to probably like take one more city after what he's already found,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're really starting to go like full speed. So yeah, I would say definitely. I mean, there's always like runner's discretion, but I think the sooner you can kind of get into the checks with a throw start, the better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm
So
keeping
I'm looking at that.
a little track in my head about how much money we can easily come across. We're up to about 35 to 40k with everything you would want to sell. That Genji helmet is huge there. I think this is a mistake. With Edgar, you have access to 3, possibly 5 item shops where everything will be discounted. The only thing you would want to buy in an item shop that is outside of one of those discounted shops is either A, it doesn't exist in those discounted shops, and we don't know that yet because we haven't been to one of the big ones we're going to visit in Water Ruin South Figaro. It's things that don't appear in item shops commonly, and those are remedies and warp stones and smoke bombs. Like if you're buying tinctures or sleeping bags, or if you're buying, your Phoenix Downs in places where you don't get the discount to start, you're lighting money on fire. If you buy, even if you only buy a handful of it, that's is what it is. All that's money you could have spent up towards another ice rod, towards another earring, whatever we end up finding there.
You don't want to be very shy when you're buying stuff half price too, because with the way that Ultras League flags work, where the prices are half of like normal and the sell price is half of normal. So like even if you overbuy something, you could always sell it and you're actually even, like you're not losing anything.
Hmm.
So, it's another thing just to like, you know, go ahead and go crazy, buy stuff that's half price. And even if you make a mistake and buy like, three, you know, hyper wrists or something, like you could sell them and it's still, no big deal.
Yeah, like even if you go there and you come across those things that maybe, circlet obviously is a decent helmet, but you'd prefer a cat hood. If you buy, two circlets for whatever reason, because you just had the money for it, and you still haven't bought the Zen Thief, if you come back and needing that, 8K for those two circlets later, you just turn around and trade it back in, for that Zen Thief or the auction house, wherever else you may be. And then also going back to the consumable point, you just buy whatever you can get on the discount, and then whatever you don't get the discount, like say you get everything there but Phoenix Downs, then it's okay to buy Phoenix Downs when you go do the Zen Thief or you go do Burning House and Themas or whatever. Eventually you'll come across Phoenix Downs. Eventually you'll come across sleeping bags. It's one of those things where RNG really has to really go in your way. That's statistically unlikely or improbable to not be able to get across those when you go back out in the world. That's a 10K
Yeah.
Zen Thief. That's a pretty affordable Zen Thief.
Yeah. So the question here is, you're really starting to think about, well, is it worth it if it's not if it's not Nasper,
Hmm.
basically. So like, do you just want to buy it just to maybe take a shot and see if it's an Illumina or something else that you could use?
Hmm.
I would say more important here is Atlas Armor and Hyper Wrist. You're probably going to throw that Illumina on Edgar here. Ooh,
Ooh,
Experience Egg's a big
that's
find.
nice. Yeah, especially with the Atma offering for sale and the Atma online. Um, with question from the chat or maybe a suggestion with that Illumina, aren't you just gonna get going? Um, Illuminas are one of those things where early they are not as good as where you may think it may be. They're good, but magic and that throw and throwing fire skins or water edges or volt edges is going to outpace it for the first 10ish minutes. Illuminas of Ragnarok's early. Their power mainly come from procs. Until you get to the double digit levels, you won't crack 1,000, swing. Where you can easily, with a double earring shadow at level 3, throw a fire skin and get close to 1,000 damage in a single turn.
Yeah, and that goes back to the point of, just go ahead and start getting into checks. Like as soon as you get skeins, as soon as you like have enough to like get yourself going, like
Hmm.
I think this going to Albrook here, like, and still having not touched South Figaro World of Ruin yet,
Yeah.
is just I don't want to say it's a time waste, but like there's other things you could be doing that's more adding towards progression on the suit.
Yeah, it's definitely. We have the Illumina, we have an Atma weapon, experience egg, skeins. We're definitely overlooting, cherry picking what we want or need now. Because you have more than enough than you get going than the average seed, far more than enough, and even really just throwing earrings is way more than enough. So you think about the things we had. We're finding some ice rods here. That's nice, but like, if you could cherry pick what's here, you could tell me there's a flame shield in the back barrel, along with the Genji helmet, and whatever else you think you may be excited about. 2 elixirs in the chest, and I still would not come here with this start. With everything I've found so far, that's just lighting another 90 seconds on fire. At no point in time is that stuff gonna help you any more than what you already have now. It's just cherry picking, searching. I know that maybe you tell me there's experience egg here. Maybe I'll reconsider. But the odds of there being an egg here, of there being anything S tier here is so low, and it's just we got more than enough to get going right now.
Yeah, I find it to be very important to like try to at least get into a check here probably within the first before 10 minutes. I'd prefer to be like actually going into checks and actually starting to knock things off. Like I would be looking for ways to get that going more so than, finding more loot and being perfect. Like the exception being like, a dried meat hunt or something like that where you have to maybe loot a little bit more.
Hmm.
But generally, especially with a throw start, you really want to just start going
Hmm.
because you're already kind of good in general.
It looks like we're getting more force skins on the airship. Um, I'm not opposed. I'm just opposed to the order in which we are doing some of these things. If they're we haven't checked the we keep mentioning it, but like that's the main thing about Edgar is you get access to half price shops. If you're worried about skins, go to the place that you want to go. That's going to give you discount stuff and see if there's skins there. If there's not skins there, then continue that search. If there's not dried meat there, then continue that search elsewhere. Because a lot of this, if there, let's say there's fire skins or fire rods or whatever, um, we're hoping to find outside of here. If it's there, then we just waste all this time not going where we should have, because we're going to go to South Figueroa, Walter Road, no matter what, right? So we might as well go there first and then work our way backwards.
Sometimes a common thing that like some people don't realize or don't think for is sometimes you want to route for the like best possible RNG
Hmm.
and then kind of backtrack from that. So like sometimes you want to go for maybe like if you're 6 and 6, like hey, I'm gonna do all of Dome of Dream and hope there's 3 espers there, and then like check and adjust after that. Sometimes same thing with shops too, where it's like what, I'm gonna go to the place where it would be the most beneficial, and then I'll backtrack from there and go other places. That sometimes helps you streamline kind of your check order, your sequencing in the seed.
Hmm. Yeah, and a little tip: if you are this worried about what you do or don't have or what you're looking for, um, levels are king, and they are so underrated. I think a lot more a greater influence, a greater variable, and a lot of PB, a lot of jet seeds that's something that more than people realize is that when you go to places like Imperial Camp and there are really lucrative fights that give that boost you up to level 12 instead of like level 3 or excuse me level 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever, those type of fights um, boost you so much more than going to another shop than really finding anything but a Valiant Knight art offering. Um, so this time we're spinning looking for water edges or whatever it is I think we're looking for. We're going on 6 minutes of it now. If we had spent that 6 minute grinding, we could have checked 4 or 5 or 6 biomes, and if we had found one really good fight, we could be like level 15 by now. Instead, we're going around. We're coming up on 14 minutes, and we're still looking for more skins.
If you watch like the races where you have like the folks in Mega Elixir versus the folks in Elixir and like the different tiers of Ultras League, a lot of what you see is that they take fights earlier and they're ahead of the scaling curve
Hmm.
earlier. So like you ride that wave the whole scene, and part of doing that is you go and you take a few grind fights and you actually get into the game a little bit quicker. So yeah, I think that's it's a good tip for everybody to really think about is how do I get into the game as quickly as possible. Like I always use my kind of frame of reference, like first fight, like the first boss fight that I go into, I want to feel like 80% confident. Like there's a few bad ones out there, but yeah, how do I get to the point where I'm going to be pretty much confident to go into the first fight? And I think that's what you really want to be thinking about here is how do you get to that point in your mindset?
All right. One thing I want to say, um, if you have like a predetermined amount of time in your head, like say you say I'm allowing myself 12 minutes to loot and do loot type activities before I start my seed or before I get going or before I go to something like Burning House, I would like to challenge you to adjust that and instead say, instead of this 12 minutes where I'm only going to loot, turn that 12 minutes into 8 minutes of looting and then take that 4 minutes and turn that into 4 minutes of grind fighting. Pick your favorite spot. It could be outside any Zen. Um, Outside both Zens, there's two different biomes. It can be in Walderwood Marsh. You can go in the town into the cave. Right outside in the forest, the South Figueroa Cave. which you have access to the hill, the desert, and the plains. A lot of different places you can go. But the gist of it is you want to go somewhere where there's two different biomes, so you get multiple options at encounters, so you can run from the bad ones and take the good ones. Spend that 4 minutes taking grind fights, throwing darts at the dartboard until you get to level, whatever level you want to get to. Just take that 4 minutes, and it will benefit you so much more in the long run than I think than just doing 12 straight minutes of looting and then going in the burning house. Even if you're going to go into burning house or elite river or something like that first, do that 8 and 4 so as that just opposed as that straight 12 and see how that goes. And
I this this would make me nervous, like very nervous, going into floating continent without any levels, like starting at level 3.
oh yeah, this is
Because like,
risque.
yeah, I mean, if you found all like level 90 magics and magic pots or something,
Hmm.
and you have to take the first boss fight at level 3 after 3 encounters, like
Hmm.
you're burning 2 minutes basically, and you still don't have like progression. I'd take a few ground fights before I even think about going to floating continent, burning house. Um, Imperial camp is pretty quick to like get in and out of, so I don't worry about that one as much. Sometimes I just go straight into that, but like
Hmm.
you do want to have like a few levels before you make a commitment to uh a place where it's hard to get out of.
Yeah, here's a little irony here. When I played this and the seed sharing, I actually went to floating continent first. And that was more just when I do things like that, I like to test and do different things. But objectively, I will tell you every day and twice on Sunday that going to floating continent first is an incredibly awful idea. This ghost train is an easy fight more often than not, but as you see, we're doing 300 damage to it. Whereas opposed if we had come back, later in the seed at the 30-minute mark when we're level 25 and this ghost train's level 24, it's absolutely no other danger to us. But Ghost Train can Scar Beam you right now, and Scar Beam will wipe everybody but the person with the Minerva on, if somebody can wear the Minerva on. So yeah, we comfortably get through it, but it was more danger. It was a little more of a dangerous fight than what it presented. And then coming up on one of those fights that when your party is developed and more formed is not something you think twice about, is we're about to come across right now. Oh, sorry. It's later on.
I mean, that's a very lucky sequence of
Yeah.
bosses to get. That could have went south quickly. I mean, sometimes you do want to play for just what could go wrong too.
Hmm.
Like I would actually feel pretty happy to go in and maybe do, I don't know, get a few levels and maybe test the waters on Edgar's checks even. Go to Vel Cave. Like there's a few other options that don't commit you to this long series of
Yeah.
checks in this case.
This is really fortunate with the boss luck there, because those are both World of Balance bosses that are pushovers. And Kefka, even at this low of a scaling, really isn't that scary. You can maybe down a character or two, but if you die, to a vanilla Kefka fight, you have other problems going on. Oh my goodness, that's a strength +2. Anywho, another thing is that's a little misleading is yeah, we made it through those first two fights, two World of Balance bosses. We have to go a very, very long way to get to the next boss, and then we have to go even further to get to the boss after that. And there's not a lot of save points in between. So first two bosses are fortunate. We essentially need the next two bosses to be fortunate for us as well, before not to get a huge time loss here.
I guess another thing that kind of struck me there, presumably, kind of my interpretation of what just happened there was that he put the Bolt 3 Esper on Shadow, but it was really Strength +2. You really want to get that off of Shadow as soon as possible and really get that onto Edgar if he's going to be your Illumina wielder
Oh yeah,
for the whole seed.
that's
So
that's a good point because we know where an offering is. We're going to transition maybe to an Atma offering setup with him if we wanted to do that way. But Illumina setup is just fine. But either way, if you want to Bolt 3 on Shadow, you do that at a Dragon. I think Edgar right now is level 13 and everybody else is level 11. If this is a very XP dense fight, Edgar can easily go from 13 to 18. and then we got 2 more fixed encounters and another boss. So we could walk out of here with Edgar being anywhere from level 20 to level 25. And that's essentially, anywhere from 7 to 15 levels worth of experience, worth of +2 strength that he's missing out on. You want to do stuff like that at a dragon. If you ever see me run and out of the blue, I randomly go and do the Opera Dragon, it's because I am doing just that. Like I have like a magic power +2 Esper, or excuse me, a strength +2 Esper, and it has a magic spell I really need my magic person to use to learn, and then that's what the dragons are. That's what that Opera Dragon is there for. That's what that Tritok spot is there for. The dragon up there is just take those 50 ability points and minimize the amount of levels that your Edgar is going to miss out with all that strength +2. Oh
I
my
would say,
goodness.
well, that egg
Yeah.
solves a few problems,
Yeah.
but the other way that you could do it, just looking at the chat here, talking about, well, Edgar has the egg, so Shadow could have the strength +2. I think having the strength +2 on whoever has the experience egg
hmm
helps you quite a bit more. I mean, if you're gonna say, "Hey, I'm gonna make my thrower a physical thrower and start throwing those missile knives that you bought," I
hmm
think you really want to get the egg on Shadow and take advantage of that.
Yeah, I have no objections to deciding, you know what, I'd rather build up the Thor as opposed to Edgar with the Illumina. Um, it's personal preference. I would lean towards the Edgar because we know where the Atma offering setup is, and that's an easy way to pick the damage cap, and that's essentially half of the tower, half of the final fight solved because he takes care of tiers 3 or 4, right? And then he takes care of the middle lane in Kekpa's tower. Um, but it will be a little bit longer. The pros to giving a Shadow is Shadow will benefit more so in the short term, whereas Edgar will benefit more in the long term. So it really just depends. Do you want to be powerful now or be powerful later? But I would lean more towards the Edgar aspect of it. Right. So okay fights so far.
Yeah, these grind fights aren't anything special, but doesn't hurt. Just a little bit more experience. I mean, again, it's kind of a lucky thing that this floating continent was relatively kind.
Yeah.
If
Plus we have 2 eggs. We're over level 20 now, and the skilling is at level 10. So even if
mm,
this was a tougher boss, we would probably be fine with everything except for Magimaster.
I think it was number 24.
Yep. Um. Yeah. So we made it through floating continent. We were pretty fortunate, but also we had power overwhelming. So even though if we ran the resistance we ran into, we were able to really get through it. Where are we going next, Golden Shocker?
I think with eggs in hand, power overwhelming, I think you start knocking off a couple dragons. I'd probably go to Opera Dragon right here and see if I can get just either the levels or the experience out of that, because that's going to make my boss fights a lot easier for the rest of the seed. Um, Getting Lock here makes it interesting too. So like now you're looking for a weapon for Lock to get him going. If you can get a VK or another Ragnarok, something else along those lines. So you're starting to look for that too now.
Yeah, keep in mind we have the Illumina and we have the Atma weapon in waiting. So we got something for Locke to do eventually. It's just that Edgar needs that Illumina. He's needs to hold on to it here for a minute.
Yeah. Well, and that's where the dragons come in. So you can basically force Edgar pretty close to 30 basically right now. If you go to say Opera Dragon, then you do the Ice Dragon and World of Ruin Narsh, and you're basically at 30. You could put Atma on him and then switch the Illumina over to Locke and basically get him online.
Yeah, that's a good point. You can use dragons to I guess you would say leapfrog yourself past the parts of the scaling where you're fighting. Dragons are not a threat. As long as you have some way to nullify a couple elements, dragons are fine. And even the tougher dragons, when you're overscaled, like the gold dragon or the water dragon, we are in the 20s. We're at level 14 for scaling. We have the Minerva art where the Minerva essentially neutralizes almost all of the dragons, as long as you're not, unscaled or whatever. So you can kind of use dragons to leapfrog that part of the seed where we need to get Edgar off the Illumina and then pass it off the lock. So now we have, three good characters or three amazing characters doing stuff. Yeah, so looks like we're going on up to do the Ice Dragon slash Tritox spot. Nothing wrong with that. Kind of does what we're talking about, using dragons in the middle portion of your seed to slingshot you a little forward. I definitely would have saved there because we don't have anything for Magimaster. There we go. If you don't have Berserker Reflect, always save because Magimaster does exist. He is real. He's out there somewhere waiting for you. And if you don't have a way to deal with him, go ahead and save. When you have an experience, like if Magimaster was off the board and you have like this spread out experience egg, so you see how we're 23, 18, 20, and 20. Doomgaze is less threatening because your characters, it's going to be really, really hard to unbalance your characters so that they're like, all level, two of them level 35, two of them level 30. So you're kind of Doomgaze proof now at this point in time.
You just have to watch out for the magical 25-20 party if you get experience eggs right at the start, because that does line up quite a bit where you get like half your experience or your experience eggs people at 25 and then everybody else at 20.
Yeah.
But yeah, all the same, I think, I mean, it's still really strong start. It's really just a matter of routing at this point. Like, what's the fastest way to kind of get everybody fully online?
Yeah, would you have done the Dragon first to your Gold Shocker, or would you have done the whatchamacallit, the Tritox spot first?
I would have done the dragon first, just because I already have my power figured out in my head. Like Edgar has his thing, Locke's gonna eventually get something, Shadow's throw. That's your three paths for KT. So I'm not looking for an Esper. I'm not really looking for anything extra at this point. Like I already feel pretty confident. So I just do the dragon, just kind of go the fastest routing possible in my mind, which would be, just take the dragon on the way up, and then, take the Tritox spot and just keep moving. Oh, I don't know if I uncurse the shield at all. I mean, I could see where Illumina would be helpful, or Ultima would be helpful, or just the extra defense from the Paladin shield. But I don't know if me personally, I'd probably just say I'm good with Atma Weapon, I'm good with Illumina, I'm good with Throw, and just keep moving. And then Strago becomes a utility caster at that point.
We are at the point in the seed, and we're not realizing it, where Strago never is to act unless he's a support character. Edgar will swing a big sword. Shadow will throw. Even in Kefka's tower, if we can pass that Illumina around between Edgar and Locke, or we can pass that Atma Weapon around between the two. So we're putting the Strength plus 2 Esper on Strago so we can learn Bolt 3. But Strago does not need to learn Bolt 3 here. Strago does not need to act in any capacity. There's no need for it. Any action he's doing, the other three characters will either have, one of them will always have their ATB ready to go, waiting for Strago to finishing up doing his inferior action. Yeah, that Water Dragon is only doing double damage to Locke because of the Cursed Shield, but otherwise you saw that Aqua Rake, we're in no danger here.
That's actually the risk here of uncursing the shield, is that Locke, who's like your third damage user, like the other person that could really be, contributing to the party, risk of them dying in every fight until you get that taken care of.
Yeah, I missed the number, but we essentially now have to babysit a character. Oh my goodness, now we don't have to go buy the offering. At least we did. At least we did what we talked about, where he's doing it in one fight. So that way it's not saying on a character for the entire floating con or whatever.
Yeah, the other thing is, I mean, I wouldn't be spending a lot of time on Espers and equipping at this point. Like I have Cure 3 on Strago. If there happens to be another like handy utility spell, I might look at that quickly. I wouldn't spend a lot of time on Espers or menus at this point until I get a couple and I want to see if it kind of synchronizes with the build for the experience eggs.
Basically, every time you get an Esper at this point in time, what I would do is I would see if Strago could wear it, or what's on it with Strago, and if it's if it's Mute, if it's Berserk, if it's Reflect, or if it's Cure 3, Life 3, Life 2, some of those utility spells, that's great. Edgar takes it next. If it by chance has like another Strength +2 or Magic Power or whatever, then I pass it to the next character, and if it's whatever, then it just stays off, and then goes on to then we go on. That's like the only Esper menuing we should be doing here. Is we don't need to pass around that Cure 3, to everybody. That Strength Esper needs to sit on whoever it's going to sit on.
Yeah, theoretically, you're going to be so overpowered. Like, offense is going to outpace any damage that's going to come to your team. So you're really focused on just getting fights and moving at this point. Like, getting everybody ability to like heal. Like, theoretically, that shouldn't even be a factor. You should be one-shotting or 2 or 3 shotting everything in Kefka's Tower, depending on how much HP you get or what bosses you get.
All right, we're doing some Fanatics Tower. This is a little. Let's see what we're gonna. Let's see what's down here. What? All right. What do you? I know this is a character. I know we need characters. I would maybe take this information and save it for later, because this is a potential time sink, because we are losing access to our best abilities. And now we're banking on Bolt 3 replacing Throw, the Illumina, and whatever else we may be able to do or not do without having access to the abilities.
There's just one Ice Rod in his inventory, so it's that and Bolt 2, Bolt 3, and that's it.
Yeah.
Whereas, Locke was the last character that you picked up. I would be more willing to look at, South Figaro Cave or even Phoenix Cave and just see if either of those pan out.
It's definitely South Figaro Cave, the cave on the belt for Shadow, and then a full Ancient Castle dive before you consider this. Maybe, I am a little biased, but I hate Strago, and I will do anything in my power to avoid Strago's checks. So keep that in mind as I say this, but we had access to a new character with a new string of checks. If we wanted to do this before something like Phoenix Cave, I totally understand. There's no guarantee that Phoenix Cave is a character. Plus, Mog isn't a great character to find right here, but this is going to slow us down. We may get through this, but we're also getting through this slowly, because if we fought this Red Dragon in normal circumstances, it's a one less cycle fight, and whatever we fight on the top of this tower, if we fought it in the outside world, it would take 1, 2, 3 less cycles. Assuming we can beat it, and there's nothing that says we have to come do this right now. We want to do it because it's a character, but we don't have to do it. And if we have to do it later, so be it. But we don't have any information that says we have to do this, so we're doing this inefficient check that's going to take longer battle times. When we have other options available.
The other thing that would concern me too is that I just used my backup plan on the dragon on the way up. And so if this is Flame Eater or, say Ifrit was still on the table, I wouldn't have a strategy for it. Now, if you can't beat the boss that you're about to fight with Bolt 3, you're in a lot of trouble. So this becomes very scary pretty quickly here.
We're moving the Cursed Shield to Shadow. This is also inherently scary because Shadow is one of our Bolt 3 wearers, or excuse me, our Bolt 3 casters, and we're now making him more likely to. Maybe he has some maneuver on, because he has some maneuver on. It's a moot point. But if he doesn't, he's more likely to wipe. No, he doesn't, because again, that Cursed Shield makes elemental damage. Multiplied times 2. So putting that on one of your your carry here, your Experience Egg Bolt 3 wearer. Whatever this fight is or isn't, we are now compromising one of our ways to get through it.
Yeah, in my mind, I would try to keep the Ice Rod as long as possible in this case, because if something goes wrong, I might need the breakable to be able to get through.
Yeah, whenever you do Fanatics Tower, always do the top part first. And then do the dragon. dragons are again jokes. I don't know why they're called legendary. They're mediocre. There's 8 of them. They're all mediocre. Whatever. But whatever is on top, I know this Ultros is less scary than a dragon, but whatever is up top is more likely to wipe you than the dragon. So if on your way up you kill the dragon, then you come up here and you hit the roadblock, you wasted that time, doing the dragon, yes or no. Plus, the dragon is optional. If you had got up here, this is a tough fight, and you barely get by the skin of your teeth, that's fine. You can pass on the dragon. But if the reverse happens, you barely get by the skin of your teeth. You're not gonna walk down, save, and then restore and come back up. Nobody's gonna make that decision, even the most conservative of us. So do this first, get through it or not, and that will allow you to decide if you're in a position or in a stance that you can now take on the dragon. Yeah, we're getting through a lot of these questionable choices, but we're getting through them because we're getting lucky with the bar star RNG. Every time we've done some, I appreciate the aggression, but every time we're banking on world balance bosses being there, or joke bosses being there for it to be for us to get through it, and maybe with some of these tougher bosses we'd be just fine as well. But we're playing a dangerous game here. Getting to these highly invested time areas, and then being able to duck all the tougher bosses that exist that would wall us here. Because if that's a poltergeist, even though we're way overscaled, that's going to be a very long fight, and it's questionable if we get through it.
Yeah, I mean, you would have to commit to probably breaking your Thunder Shield at that point, or both of them, to get through that. Like, Bolt 3 and Bio doesn't really get you far enough, I don't think. Not with this party, like with the magic power, because you don't really have like high tier magic power at the moment.
Yeah, and if we go through a bunch of other options, and then we end up here, at the the 50-minute mark, and turns out it's this or Burning House, then so be it. Full send, all hands on deck. But we have so much quicker checks, and there's nothing that says we have to come here and do this long and dangerous check that Plus, another thing too is it's Mog, and Mog, without being able to pair his checks with Terra, or kind of already being there, his checks are, slow. There's Strago, not quite Strago level again, because the Strago's awful. I hate him. Nothing personal, but I just do. But Mog's
Nothing
checks are
personal,
kind of, yeah. Mog's checks are kind of in that
personal.
same tier where you want to, kind of do them back to back. Or do them at the point in the seed where you can capitalize on knowing that if it's what you need, you can duck out of them and not have to do all of them.
Yeah, I agree. Sorry about that, Glenn.
It's okay. Strago just got me all worked up for no reason.
I mean, I've heard the audio clips of other folks that have had problems with Strago over the years, so I don't think you're the only one.
Alright, looks like we're going to do some Moogle defense action. I actually like doing this when you need a character. Like say we were at, 5 and 8. Do this and then walk up there. If it's, another Mog down there, you just reset. Because it's not a character, and then you go on. Because it always like one of those weird spots where we're not in the Fanatic's Tower anymore, so we got our full complement of abilities, so we are rocking and rolling again. It's like when you warp down from doing the Kefkat and R spot, it's one of those things that I know I got power overwhelming. I just want to go into this, but let's say we were at 5 and 8. You warp down next to him, and you're like, if I push the button, there's no going back. I really want to go all the way over there. Like, But doing this first, I do like.
I would at 5 and 3, I would think about efficiency of just hitting as many checks as I can, because like at this point I'm thinking I still need a minimum of 7 more checks. So I'm looking for what's that series of however many checks that gets me there. So I mean, doing this is fine. It's going to be probably value. It's probably an Esper, just based on what you saw with when you drop down, you see the Moogle. But then where are you at with you're still going to probably go up to Kefkat and Arsh. And it is a hair more efficient to actually just go straight up there because of the way you warp back down.
So let's look at the tracker on the left side of the screen. We need 6 more espers and 1 more character. So as you mentioned, no matter what, we're doing 7 more checks, some way, somehow. We've already done 2 dragons, plus top of next tower, plus we've had a number of dead checks. So we're at 12 checks. We're doing 7 more no matter what. So some way, somehow, we end up at 20 checks minimum, if not more. So then we're also at the point where we're considering getting Kefka's Tower skip with the 22 checks. So that also goes back to Golden Hawker's point, is just, chaining everything together as efficiently as possible. Because we've had the 2 offerings from dead checks. Or excuse me, yeah, we had 2 offerings from dead checks. Fanatic's Tower, which counts as 3 checks in itself if you do the dragon. We killed the other dragon already. So we're gonna get skip. So since we're gonna get skip, let's do everything as efficiently as possible as we get there. And
This was an interesting decision to bring Morgan as opposed to Strago, because like Strago's your cure 3, you've already spent time on him. So now you're kind of resetting that and saying, okay, well now I'm going to get Mog up to speed and make him my utility. So that's a, oh, was that, okay, it might have been an accident. That if that was an intentional decision, it would be a interesting one to say the least. Because you already put time into Strago, so you probably want to keep him in the party as much as possible.
Yeah, and this doesn't apply to just this seed because it's been very generous. But just about every seed you play, when you get your 4 party members, you need to be able to identify weakest number 1, weakest number 2, and just not have them act. Like ideally, you have 2. Sometimes it's debatable between 1, 2, and 3 which one's the most efficient. Sometimes when it's magic based, or if you have like a natural magic fire 3, but that's the weaker magic power of the 2, of the 3, then maybe that person that needs to act only in specific situations where you have like fire weak bosses, because they'll be able to damage the others. But it's a skill. It's very much an acquired skill in being able to identify what you have, where it is, how it works on what you have in front of you, and your fastest way to get through that fight. And the beginner's version of that is just not having character number 3 and character number 4 act, unless it's to support the party, whether it's Phoenix down, reviving, Revivify, whatever it is. It's just their supporting role.
Yeah, economy of action is pretty important. It applies to pretty much every boss fight. It applies to most every action in the game, where it's like, there's an opportunity cost if you do something. So you want to look for the thing that actually gets you, the most progression. It's the most damage on the boss in any given turn. It's the most, the most value in terms of checks that you're looking for. So you're really chasing stuff like that as you progress through the seed.
And because it's not uncommon in a seed to kill 12 bosses and then do about another dozen fixed encounters. And then, through all of those fights, if your 3rd and 4th character are acting and they're just preventing character number 1 and character number 2 from acting, each one of those instances, is like 3 or 4 seconds here or there while you wait up. But if you're doing that over the course of 30 plus fights, it just adds up. And if you're having longer fights with multiple cycles, cycle is one of basically the ATB fills up for everybody, everyone in your party in a single turn. If you're doing that for 3 or 4 cycles, that just adds up so fast. And if you don't use stats companion, you don't really see how much your time in battle is taking up in your total run of your seed.
Yeah, it's most of the walking is pretty much equivalent no matter what you do. It's time in battles and time in menu are the kind of controllable factors in trying to get faster. Like those are the things that you're really trying to pare down as much as you can.
I think he still has both of the Illuminas going on here. Yep, there's one. At what point in time, Golden Shocker, would you switch the Illumina for the Atma weapon? For one of the 2 Atma weapon wielders?
I'd probably be thinking about it once I get north of like mid 30s. Like when I'm in that 35 to 40 range, I'd certainly be looking like around then, with the egg in hand, obviously.
Hmm.
The exception being if I found a Genji glove. So if I found a Genji glove, I'd be trying to just get both Illuminas on the same person.
I do think we
Um,
have a Genji Globe.
yeah, then I mean, I would be with the Genji glove. I'd probably just put them both on my strongest character, and then have somebody else on Atma weapon.
Would now
Yeah,
Locke is the experienced egg welder, of the two. I think he switched it over to, or excuse me, Edgar is of the two. I do think he switched over to Locke, and but Locke is a little lagging behind. Would you double Lumina the stronger character, or would you offering Atma the stronger character?
as I progress through the seed, I'd probably do um, the Genji Illuminas on the stronger character, but then for endgame, it's probably going to be more important to actually have Atma on the person who's the highest level, and then I'd probably flip it. So you have a bit of a luxury here with both Lockie and Edgar. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if you have to make a decision based on their equipment and what they can actually wear, it's a little different, but I would say probably put it on the Illumina user up front because Atma is not as strong until you get into the deeper levels. Like you need to be at least north of 32, but probably preferably higher than that to get the full value out of it. So I think I'd be using the Luminous first and then switch over later. That's my more opinion than anything else, but that's what I'd be thinking.
All right, I believe that was 23 seconds in the Esper menu there, and we didn't accomplish anything. Um, as harsh as that sounds, there's nothing on one of those espers that we just spent all that time shuffling around for that benefits us in any way whatsoever going forward. I think we put Cure 3 for Locke to learn. And Locke doesn't need to be casting Cure 3. Locke needs to wear 2 Illuminas. Locke needs to channel his inner Yumaro and lose his item and magic command and only attack. That's what, going back to the point earlier, that's what Strago's there for. So that the latest Esper I think had Berserk on it, plus some other support spells. It's throw that on Strago here. Go on through. We started going in the menu at like 47:01, and now we're going up in 48:11 before we go inside. That's a minute and 1 second. We lit on fire that we could have trimmed down to 5 or 6 seconds.
Yeah. It also kind of overemphasizes the point like Locke and Edgar are your two people taking turns now. So
Mm-hmm.
like you have them set up with your experience eggs. You're basically foregoing not foregoing completely, but like you're de-emphasizing Shadow's role in the party by really focusing on them too, which is fine. You know, I think it's all kind of a equivalent decision at this point. But now those Locke and Edgar are the only folks that really should be taking turns in most fights because that's where the bulk of your damage is coming from.
Would you open the 4 chests down here with the setup we got going on?
Um, if I remember right, Locke doesn't have great defense. I'd great offense is better than a good defense. Like I might, just poke around a little bit in this case, but I wouldn't be spending a lot of time on it. I'd do the most efficient thing that I can and move on. Um, so it depends on how much confidence I have in my team, more than anything.
Yeah, Locke has like a ninja gear and like a headband on, which is I know the aluminum mix up for a lot of that, but which is not ideal. He doesn't really have any type of elemental diversification or nullification, excuse me. So he's definitely lacking there. His best defense is actually his offense with the Illumina. I'm not super opposed here to spiking a few chests. If this situation were reversed, where we were magic dependent and we had a lot of great defense, and we were saying, "Hey man, I'm gonna open this chest because I want an Illumina or I want an offering or whatever," um, offerings and Illuminas are not in the vanilla chest in Final Fantasy VI. So therefore, they have a very, very critically, comically low chance of appearing in chest and Ultra Sleek flags. So when you're spiking chests for looking for things that are not in the middle game, um, you're going to be spending a lot of time making yourself mad. But when it's the reverse of that, where you know what, a red jacket here would actually be beneficial. There are red jackets, there are elemental shields aplenty. There are Minervas. There's no behemoth suits. There's regal crowns. There's tons of things like that in the chest in the vanilla game. And only 20% of the chest are randomized in Ultros League. So 80% of all those vanilla contents exist. They're out there to be found. So when you need things like that at this point in time in the seed, it's still appropriate to grab chest or find or take a chance or here or there. But if a Thunder Shield does absolutely nothing for you, if a Red Jacket does absolutely nothing for you, and you're still opening chests, then you're cherry picking, and maybe you have a time when I had a Valiant Knife and then I opened a chest and Ultra Sleek Seed and there's an offering and it's fantastic, it's cool. We'll remember it forever and we'll appreciate it. But that is so unlikely. The offerings in the monster boxes, that's where you want to go. The Lumina is at Dragons. If you want the Lumina, that's where you go.
Yeah, the odds of getting something just out of a normal chest is absolutely, just like Glue said, it's really low. I think your focus is really like if you can spike a little bit of defense here, or sellables that get you there, so that you can swing by maybe an armor shop if you absolutely have to, if you're really feeling kind of unconfident. But yeah, I guess here I'd spend a little time, but like once you're getting past like maybe 5 or 10 chests, you'd be looking for maybe just like swing by an armor shop if you absolutely have to, or if there's one on the way,
Yeah,
to buy something.
I don't think we've seen anything of value, like anything, like A tier or up in an item shop as far as defense. But even if like you stop at Zen on your way to Kefka's Tower, I am all for that in this type of situation. What you like, what, maybe I don't want ninja gear, maybe a gold armor, something like that. It's better than nothing, and that's the type of thing that you will see. Mithril Mel's, whatever. Just get off the leather hat. Just get off whatever, beginner thing. Somebody comes into your party and has that equipped. Get off that type of stuff with the Mithril Mel. That's perfectly fine if you want to take a stab at that.
Sometimes, yeah, if you're looking for maybe a gauge of reference of like when to do that, I mean, again, everybody's threshold's a little different, but like around 150 physical defense, 125 magic defense usually correlates to some of the bigger damage numbers that you see in like tier 1 and tier 2. So if you can kind of get north of those numbers, like 150, like a diamond vest or something is probably good enough to get you there with a decent shield.
Yeah.
So like you don't need a lot, but just having something that kind of gets you north of like triple digits. Like you don't want to be with like a leather, vest or leather armor or ninja gear. That's pretty risky.
Yeah, I will say too. With all of these experience eggs we have, we're gonna have 3 characters that probably end up, if not 50 or over 50, close to 50. That makes like just HP total skyrocket as well. So like we'll still take, maybe we take 500 damage from a 10 hit or whatever, or if we get caught a straight 10 hit in that part of the final fight. So be it. Oops, it's switched to Final Fantasy 7 music. Let me switch it back to Final Fantasy 6, but there we go.
It is pure luck though that 3 experience eggs in the same seed. I would if you're routing to kind of the average to the mean a little bit, I mean, you're certainly thinking about, just trying to be careful there, in terms of, when you don't have that kind of overwhelming power, you're going to be a little bit more conservative.
Numbers went AFK there for a second, so I fast forward him up to his next check, which is he's going to South Figaro Cave here. This is gonna be really awkward because if it's a character, because that means everybody else who took a more traditional path through the seed found the natural way through the seed. Because unless this character is Go-Go or something, yeah, let's see what we got left. We got, like, unless this is a character Go-Go, Yao, or Yamaro, this character probably gives us access to the requisite number of Espers, or even maybe Strago and the Cave on the Belt does. We did a lot of time dancing around this. Fan Axe Tower alone, among other places. If this is like Cyan or Celeste or Terra, this is where you would feel really, really bad, because if your handful of your league mates ran here, and they found all the great things that you have, and they most likely did. The Illumina was in the chest of Vigoro Castle, and you start with Edgar. Most people are going to grab that Illumina. Where was the egg? The egg was a Zen Thief. It was 10k. Most people are not going to pass up a 10k Zen Thief, because worst case scenario, it's like an ice shield, and 10k for our ice shield is still a fair price. So if everybody's working with what you got, and yep, well, it's Go-Go, but we still have access to quick access to some checks for some espers who having to do Go-Go stuff. So
Yeah, I think you avoid Go-Go stuff if you can here, just because with Go-Go being a single check, that's gonna probably lead you to more character progression. So I mean, you're looking at probably character 7 at Zone Eater there.
all right, looks like
Again, by RNG.
All right, here's another routing point I want to mention here. If we are comfortable with doing Ebbett's Rock and doing Burning House here, we should also be comfortable with doing Cave on the Belt first, because once we do Cave on the Belt, it warps us down here. It puts us down here anyways. Whereas if this doesn't give us the progression we need, now we have to go to the other side of the world, and then we get sent right back down here. So it kind of goes back to efficient routing and putting your ducks in a row, so that you're working through things as quickly and efficiently as you possibly can. So now we need this to be 2 Espers, and not dead or dead in a character, or else our next check is Phoenix Cave, Go-Go's Cave, or Cave on the Belt, and they're all pointed to us going to another direction.
Yeah, I mean, the hope and dream here is that, you know, the next, basically, you need 2 Espers out of the next 3 checks that you do. So what are the 3 fastest checks that you could do? You know, if you were doing, say, Belt Cave first, it leads you down here. Maybe you don't feel like doing Burning House. You still just drive over here and do Hyden's Cave. I mean, then you might have your 2 Espers. You might be good to go. Or, you know, if you feel like you need to do Burning House, then you're, you know, right here ready to go. So it's a good routing point to think about.
Yeah, if this was reverse and we had 9 Espers and 5 characters, and let's say we had, like, you know, 1 or 2 more checks on the table, let's roleplay a little bit. I am not super mad, or would be super opposed to just taking a stab at Burning House. At the end of the day, you're just guessing. So if you want to take a stab or 2, that's perfectly fine. I understand it. You're darned if you do, if you're darned if you don't. But when you need 2 Espers and you have more checks in front of you, plus you're going to do 3 more checks no matter what, right? We could have possibly got, you know, the Esper warp down here, another Esper, then heck, you can even do Burning House just for the last check, just because you're here, if you wanted to. But all right, that's Esper number 8. Let's see where numbers goes next.
Just a interesting little tidbit about the tentacles fight. When you have a lot of physical damage, both like throwing physicals and with the double Illumina, you want to shoot for back attacks on the tentacles, just because it'll get you through the fight a little bit faster. So just something to think about if you ever get the option to try to back attack whenever you can against tentacles. Same for Goddess too. So like throw like shurikens will actually do, you know, the back attack damage.
How do you, Gold Shocker, how do you tell which side of Goddess is the backside?
It's the direction of the wing, if I'm not mistaken, or there's like a wing or an arm that sticks out, and that's her front, and then your basically the opposite side is what you're shooting at.
All right, so 20 checks. We are down to one last Esper. We'll see here if it's here, and ooh, it's a realm.
It's a realm. I don't know if I might just take that in this situation.
Yeah, I think I'd just grab it. After this, I would grab this. It would be Esper Mountain, and if it's a Imp Sprite or Imperial Sprite running around, then we see if that's checked our Esper number 9.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that makes the most sense to me.
Oh, speaking of Goddess, yeah. So the side pointing forward with the wing or with a little ball in her hand is the front side, and the arm that is pointing up, that is her back side. So that's the side with the arm pointing up. That is the side you can back attack.
Yeah, if you pay attention to that wing that's sticking up, like that wing's facing, towards the party, like that's her front. So just a quick little like visual thing to look for.
All right, going back to action economy or efficiency, whatever you like to call it. We did have lock swing there. That's a little risque because if lock procs Pearl, then obviously that heals her and undoes any good lock had just did. So I think the fastest way through that fight, I know it didn't proc, so you're darned if you do, if you're darned if you don't. Plus it didn't trigger a love token. But the fastest way through that fight, or the way I would approach it, is just let Edgar swing, and then let Shadow throw, Edgar swing, and then Shadow throw, and the fight's over. Amazing performance there, petting the dog. 5 out of 5 stars. Actually, excuse me, 6 out of 5 stars. I give it. I greatly appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you can say that it's a Worlds Collide seed if you don't pet the dog. I mean, definitely all pro performance there.
All right, Esper Mountain Peak. I like this. I am all for it. Let's think ahead a little bit here, Golden Shocker. What would your party composition look like for Kefka's Tower here?
So, I think you have Locke and Edgar on their own paths, and then Shadow and Strago together. I think that makes the most sense to me. I think Shadow's actually the biggest risk at this point because he didn't have the egg on for a period of time, so his throws are only doing 3-4K. Whereas I think you could pretty comfortably say Locke and Edgar are going to just crush everything with their setups right now. So I think you're thinking, okay, well, I want to get as much out as I can in the 2 paths that Locke and Edgar are on. I think it's a discretionary thing of which one goes down the middle, which one goes down one of the side paths. And then the other side path, I think you're putting Strago and Shadow together.
All right, great heads up play here by numbers. We know 90k is the magic number. Now hopefully there's an Esper here for sale. Ooh, and there is. Yeah, it never feels good. Oh, yeah, that's great. And it's Fenrir of all things. Yeah, it never feels good when you have to come here. But if you're subjecting yourself to Opera House, or excuse me, Auction House RNG, then so be it. But when you're suggesting it's either this or since he's next closest place to check his Owzers, and there's nothing that says Owzers is a character or is an Esper or isn't dead. I think the correct play here is if you know there's an Esper, just subject yourself to the Auction House RNG. Embrace it. It promises it's personal. The guy that does the auction, he doesn't hate you. The guy at the door doesn't have it out for you. It's just sometimes percentages go your other way. It's okay. It happens. Sometimes they do go your way, and the Esper is, the first thing up, and you take what you do know as opposed to go into the unknown.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking for the fastest way to get to 9 Espers at that point. So whatever it is that gets you there, I mean, that has to be the goal.
Alright, he's taking your advice. We got Strago and Shadow together. Lock on his own. Edgar up the middle. A little, I guess I'll say nitpicking, but I would have put Shadow and Strago on the left, and I would take their fight first, so that way I could see, because they're the most questionable whether they can or can't get to a fight, because everybody else just wears a Atma offering and Paladin shield, and they can't die. They're essentially unstoppable tanks, and it's fine. Nothing that the game could throw at us is going to hinder us. Absolute worst case scenario is we were level 45 instead of level 46, and we just had to stop, take some grind fights, get off level 45, and defeat Doomgaze, right? Maybe we fight Doom and he freezes us on turn 1, we just reset, go back into it. Those are the type of roadblocks that hinder Edgar and Locke here, whereas Shadow and Strago have actual roadblocks that they possibly couldn't get through. So Locke will get through this Guardian, probably on this first attempt just fine. We'll save, and now we'll do, probably do the Edgars next, and then we'll go to work right over to Strago and Shadow. And then if we find out the bad news that Strago and Shadow are roadblocked, we wasted all this time, doing the other sides first. And now we either have to revert back to a save point before we came inside and flip the parties, or rerock the tower. So when you come in with Skip, always, if you have a questionable party, always see what they're cooking with first in their lane before you commit any time to the other lanes.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it feels bad when you have to, park your airship, save, and then go in. It's like, oh, I'm losing 20 seconds, but then if you run into a bad encounter, you're more than making up by doing that. So it's definitely worth the time.
All right, Guardian down. Very well done. And let's see if he does Edgar's sequence of events next, or if he switches over to Locke and Strago.
I would say that, I mean, it's not a big difference at this point, because now you already kind of have your save spot. You're kind of already set up and good to go. It's really just discretionary of, how confident do you feel about that Strago team? Do you want to do that a little bit earlier just to see if it's bad or not? It was interesting to have two charm holders effectively in the Locke party. I would have probably put either Gogo or who was the other one, Mog, one of the two of them in the right party, just so that I had a charm holder in each party.
Mm-hmm. All right. My goodness, is that a quality Edgar?
Kind of a big deal.
All right, pop quiz, Golden Shocker. We are at, what's our scaling at? We are level 18 scaling. So this is level 36 Haydn. How much HP does this Haydn have?
I would say probably order of magnitude, probably like 20 some grand. A hair over, a hair under. Maybe a hair over.
A hair over 26 grand.
20.
20.
Like 22, 23.
22, 23. Haydn at this level has 20,916 HP.
It wasn't too far off.
Very close, very well done.
Honestly, that's one of the things that people have asked me. Like, I've done a seed and I'm like, I take a turn and I'm like, oh, this will finish this fight. And it does. And it's like, well, how do you know? And they're scaling on enemies based on like their level and their scaling. So like at level 36, basically you can, I don't know, multiply their base HP, like how much HP they have per level. And you can kind of come up with the math. There's some equations out there that you can actually figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Glue, I don't know. I might be stealing some of your thunder there, but but it is a good little thing to be able to know in terms of general kind of look and feel of like how much HP does a given boss have, because that helps inform you, yeah, what kind of actions you need to take. Do you always need to use like Ultima, or can you just use like a quick little bolt 3 and be done? You know, sometimes that saves you time.
A little longer hide and fight than we would have liked there, but we got through it. So I asked that because I have this handy little tool that we some of us mentors put together that not quite ready to release to the public. I'm gonna pull it up here for us. It's kind of scrunched up, but forgive me, it's just a Google sheet. Come on. See if we can get it zoomed up.
And maybe just zoom in on like Welk or something.
Alright, this is Fumbaba. Let's zoom in on Fumbaba. So we are at level 38 scaling, I believe I said. And
yep.
Let's see how much HP has at level 38. Oh man, it went over to Wixel. What's my bad? He has 34,314 HP at this level.
Yeah, at 40 he has around 36. So, I mean, that pretty much makes sense. It's going to be just a little bit under that. I mean, Fun Baba earns his nickname Thick Baba pretty easily. He is a thick little guy, except for his legs.
Yeah, his toenails are even thick. But it's important to know, not just know, but at least be in the ballpark so you can kind of gauge, you know, how many actions your characters need to take. Because let's say this Striga was casting Ultima for 9999, and that was all we had. We just had Bolt 3 or whatever, and Shadow was a Mule Charm carrier or whatever. So that means we need, like, you know, 3 Ultimas plus some change to get through that 34k damage that we need to do. So then we would maybe think, you know, okay, after turn 1, he kills my Mule. Do I want to pick him up? Do I want to keep trying to go? Maybe at turn 1 you want to keep going because you still got to do at least 4 more turns with your Strago. And let's say Strago doesn't have a Thunder Shield, he's going to deal a lot of Thunder damage. It's highly questionable if you're able to survive that or not, right? But let's say it's reversed and you had done, and why it's important to know is 34k on the back half. Let's say you had done 27k or whatever, and then you got to critical status, and you ran out of MP, and your Mule was down, so you know his next action is going to wipe you. If you've already done 27k and you're sitting on an Ice Shield, and that Ice Shield is going to do 9999, then that way if you know for sure that Ice Shield ends the fight for you, then you're more inclined to part with it as opposed to just being a gamble. Maybe you think I want to do a little bit more. Maybe I throw out a fire too and hope he doesn't kill me so I can trim him down enough for the Ice Shield. If you know or always have a kind of sense of where you are with HP in the fight, you're able to make more efficient decisions based on the variables that the fight presents for you like that. And while Number begins his final fight here, we are in the process of making this neat little tool, whereas you can find whatever boss you were playing with, and I'm gonna stand back out. It's going to be yeah, it's all scrunched. And it got flipped somewhere somehow. I'm just going to delete it. Anywho, there's a little slot you can put your level in, and it will tell you the current HP based on your level scaling for every enemy, every boss in the game. So, something that's coming, and I'll throw it everybody's way when it is 100% ready. Alright, Golden Strike, let me ask you this. What are you doing on this final fight? I know we got access to Fenrir and Golem. Would you consider using Fenrir and Golem before tier 3?
One of the two of them, yeah. I guess the question would be, would you use it here or would you use it on tier 2? Mm-hmm. Some of that depends on whether you have mute and you can kind of take your time on tier 2 and like heal or, you know, whatever. Straga with tier 3 kind of makes that decision a little bit easier, where it's like I know that I can heal no matter what. Mm-hmm. I would say I hedge towards using Fenrir or Golem, probably Fenrir, on tier 3 if I can, just because of the way that that works, where you might be able to dodge like a Havoc Wing on Final Kafka, and the image status carries through the different tiers. So I might just say, oh, you know what, I'm going to use Golem, whichever one's more painful, whether it's this one or the tier 1 or tier 2.
Yeah, that's the nice thing about Fenrir on tier 3 is the image stats goes up for some Final Kefka shenanigans. And when tier 3 is in that immediate phase, there's nothing they can do that will take the image status off of you. Everything they're doing is magic attack. They're out of the physical attack phase. So it goes up with you. I would say here that as soon as Drago went down the first time, I would have let him just take a nap until we were down to just the short arm, because we ended up having to revive him 2 or 3 times because he kept getting knocked back down. It's no big deal if Strago is alive for the middle and the front part of the fight. All that matters is he's alive for the end of it to come up to the next tier to hold on to that Fenrir or hold on to that Golem or whatever.
Also, with a utility Strago, or whoever your utility person is, it's not a bad idea. Like if there's somebody that is actually a problem with their with their defense, they're gonna get beat up really a lot on tier 1. Like if you have Banish, that's a good place to just use like even a single cast Banish, just to like get one person through. That they're like front road, they're gonna take 2,000 damage normal, 4,000 on a crit, and you really need to make sure that they survive no matter what. That's a pretty common thing where you lose like a high-end attacker on tier 1 because you weren't really protecting them. So Vanish is a way to get around kind of deficiency around your defense. So something to keep in mind, like keep an eye out for Vanish when it pops up.
All right, we don't have access to mute, so we are playing a dangerous game. The thing with Magic, Magic only does magic spells, which is, most probably people know, but they only do magic spells that you can cast as well. So that's why you see things like Bolt 3 and Quarter. All of those any abilities, they're coming from either Tiger Face or Tools. And one of those spells that sits in Magic's inventory is Muddle. So when you overqueue, like you have Strago cast Cure 3, you queue up Lock to attack, and you queue up Edgar to attack, and Shadow to throw a Ninja Star. If at any point in time Magic muddles one of your queued up characters, and if he queues up, that Edgar is going to friendly fire on the party, and he'll kill everybody that he doesn't target until he targets himself first. And if he targets himself last, that's a wipe. So if you don't have access to mute, you are always in danger of wiping. Maybe not wiping, but you're always in danger because Magic always has Muddle sitting there floating around after disposable they can use on any turn.
You have to watch out for that for Zombie on Tiger as well, for the same reason.
Yeah, it's one of those things. When I know we're level 50, we had 3 eggs. We had a good time, but Muddle and Zombie are what kill you in the Final Fantasy 6 Advanced version, the Dragon's Den. So you got to walk around with ribbons because there's a lot of status element stuff I like to throw at you. And if you're walking around the Dragon's Den, you probably got like 8 Illuminas. You stole a bunch of Atma weapons off of this guy right here. So you're walking around with power overwhelming to the 10th degree. But that is, there is no greater power to defend against Muddle except not acting. Except for Ribbons, of course, but...
I mean, it is a fair point that Atma offering is the least scary offering zombie situation, but all the same, I think the point stands. Like, one day you get a VK offering, and all of a sudden your zombie's doing 5,000, 6,000 a swing, and there's not a whole lot you can do if that goes the wrong direction.
Yeah, like even if he doesn't muddle the Edgar, if he muddles the Shadow who's known as Shuriken, that Shuriken's going to do 8,200 damage on everything. It's going to do 8,200 damage on Edgar. It's going to do 800 damage on Final Kefka. It's going to do that on Gigantos. It's going to do that on everything. And while it may not wipe us, it's going to just inconvenience us. It's just another roadblock that we can prevent. Right, Fenrir coming out. Columnist protection is a go. This will end this tier. All right, what's the fastest way to take down tier 4 here with the damage we're doing?
It's probably going to be. It depends on who gets countered, but it's probably going to be a couple swings on Locke and Edgar, basically 2 each, because that gets you north of 62k is what you're looking for. I think Edgar doing 4,500 swing, Locke's going to be doing more than 10,000 with his 2 swings. I think that gets you where you need to go. So I think you're basically looking to just take Edgar and Locke turns if you can, and then if you get countered, you may sprinkle in like Shadow or Strago's turns, but basically I think you're trying to focus on just Locke and Edgar here.
Yeah, Edgar will do 18-ish K. Locke does, the double Lumina. That should push him out of Fallen 1.
And you might need 1 Shuriken, to get you out of it, but beyond this, basically...
Yeah, that I know that's only 2 seconds, but that Strago action turn was unnecessary. Even if he hyperdrives, Edgar here or something, we have access to a couple of elemental shields, and then we just turn around and let Strago replace them and act and do that with.
Yeah, you don't need to really do any of this here. Basically, all you need to do is let Edgar pick a turn and it's over. So that Shuriken was an extra turn, the Thunder Shield. I guess the combination of both is good enough, but
yeah, because
no, not even.
Now we're getting close to 75k ish that we've done when we just need to do 62. So GG's. 1:22:50 is the official time for numbers in the seed.
Yeah, GG's for sure. Yeah, I mean, I know that maybe a lot of that does come across very critical. 122 is a heck of a good time. A lot of power was kind of applied very well in terms of like the Atma offering, the double Luminos. So it wasn't a situation where, what could have been, if that makes sense. Like, definitely kind of took advantage of the power. I mean, there was little nuances of maybe getting a hair more out of it, and that was a lot of the feedback, I think. But overall, I mean, it was just a really strong seed and just really good offense. I mean, when you get that many experience eggs, you really want to push that, as hard as you can.
All right, before I sign us off, if you are tuning in, first off, thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Numbers, for letting us do a VOD review of you.
Before you close out, do you want to answer that question in the chat? Are you looking at that?
I would say recognizing that shuffling the Bahamut, the Cure 3 Esper around, getting out of the Esper, just setting the Strength +2 Esper alone would have saved you 3 or 4 minutes. Because every time we found a new Esper, we went back and we played a little Esper shuffling. And what spell did we learn from any of those Espers that we took advantage of in the final fight? Except for we took Cure 3. I think we cast Cure 3 a couple times with Strago. We used a remedy. So let's go back to all those times we spent shuffling around those Espers. In the menu, like I mentioned we did a minute and 1 before we went into I think it was Ancient Castle or the South Figaro Cave of the Ancient Castle. We never used that in the final fight or really anywhere else throughout the seed. So that in itself was just a time waste. Not only was it a time waste, it was a time waste for something we never even used. So recognizing in this situation that Strength +2 is good. Everything else is Strago either learns it or nobody learns it. Saves you at least 3 to 4 minutes.
Yeah, I think that that kind of would be my thought is once you set a path on your team, try to stick to it and minimize how much you're toggling between those different paths. It's kind of like classes and like Final Fantasy Tactics or whatever, where it's like you have a role for your person, like just let them be that person. Like a lot of times that's the most beneficial and the most efficient way through the seed. So, I mean, I would echo that. If you asked me for like a different one, I would say the other thing was maybe a little bit of the menuing. There's certain things that you can do with menuing in terms of holding directional buttons to flip through menus a little bit faster. Like some of the buying and selling, it was kind of like, tap the button down and then go to the thing you want, as opposed to like scrolling quickly and then selecting what you need. So maybe there's a few things there on the menuing side that would save you some time. And some of the routing things that we talked about through the seed were also kind of, I would say the approach of going straight up to the floating continent at the beginning was scary to me. Getting a few levels up front, riding the scaling wave and staying ahead of it the whole seed, as opposed to taking a chance and seeing what happens. I mean, there are races where you'll take a chance and it'll work out in your benefit, but it'll also put you at a risk if it doesn't pan out in your direction. So I guess those are a couple things that kind of come to mind other than what Glue just said.
Yeah, I would. If you like told me to like lay odds on your odds of making it through floating continent at the beginning there, I would probably put it like maybe at 2/3 that you make it through. Because even if you fight, as long as you don't run into the major roadblocks, because we had a very generous seed. Like a Stooges fight, we probably get through, but it takes a little longer than we like. But 2/3 is 66% or whatever, and that's more often than not. But think about that 1/3 of the time and how often 1/3 actually comes up, and what that means. That 1/3 means that depending on where you got stopped, where you got walled up there, that's all time you lit on fire that someone else who didn't go up there quite that early, now you have to make up. And some people just don't give that time back to you. Some people just keep going, and that's just the nature of the randomizer. Sometimes their way was better, sometimes their way had more better stuff on the pass, sometimes it was the same. And because they go in Ancient Castle, you only have to do one boss down there and a dragon, whereas opposed to going up top where you got to do 4 bosses, a handful of fights, then it just maybe worked out better for him. Then
I mean, there are times where you'll go into a check and you'll run into a brick wall, and you just have to like check and adjust out of it. What you don't want to do is put yourself in that position early in the seed as much as possible, or like if you do put yourself in that position, like try to get into it as quickly as possible and out of it as quickly as possible. It's like, hey, I find a Magi Master, I'm going to reset and I'm just going to move on. But you don't want to have to do like 3 minutes of walking and then find out you're Magi Master and then you're stuck. And then, like Glue said, like you just burn that time. You want to do it where it's like a quick single check. You get into it, you see that you're walled, you have other options, you can just go and do those instead. So you're looking for those opportunities to kind of get in and out of difficult checks at the beginning. Like once you start getting momentum forward, you're fine. It's that first check where you just want to be a little bit more careful, just to make sure that you're like setting yourself up to be successful.
yeah, you're always at your most vulnerable at the seed and Ultros seed at the beginning, because until you get developed and diversified offense, things like guarding are a much stronger threat to you until you have a way to either A, survive a few attacks, or B, do a lot of damage to him. And you just don't do a lot of damage to him at level 6, and he does a lot more damage to you. Whereas when we fought Guardian later in the seed with a single Lockware and 2 Illuminas, we had all that developed offense, we had all that developed stuff. He was sitting on a Spirit saying he had the experience of the offense, and it was nothing in even a 1v1 scenario. But if you run up the Guardian up there, it's we start the teeter to that 1/3 of the odds of where I don't think you make it through. And there were 4 chances at fighting a Guardian up there, and Guardian wasn't even the worst case scenario that the game could have threw at you. But with that, thank you everybody for watching us. We're going to raid the Final Fantasy random FF1R Winter Marathon, excuse me. So thank you everybody for tuning in. Thank you Numbers for allowing us to do your VOD review. I appreciate you. And then thank you as well to Golden Soccer for agreeing to join and hang out with me and talk about video games with a friend about a friend.
Yeah, exactly. No, you know, it's always fun doing these. Thanks for, you know, asking me to jump on here and, numbers, obviously, you know, just to maybe throw it out there as a last second thing here. Yeah, don't forget the mentoring and all that stuff's out there in the community. Like if you have questions, the beginners channel, everything else, you know, for everybody that's watching, not just numbers, but you know, everybody that's out there. I mean, a really great community when it comes to mentoring, answering questions, all that. So, you know, don't hesitate to ask questions or see if you can find out something that you didn't know previously. I think a lot of people are willing to jump in and help you there. So, with that being said, you know, a lot of fun doing this. Definitely appreciate it, and hope everyone has a good night.
Yeah. All right. So again, we're gonna go right on over to the Final Fantasy Randomizer. I missed what actually is going on right now, but this will be catching one of their featured submissions, approved submissions for the 2024 Final Fantasy Randomizer Winter Marathon. So let's go check that out. And again, everybody have a wonderful evening.